Welcome back to Bold Ideas with Gettner Drummond. Today I'm sharing the story of why I decided to run for governor of Oklahoma. We'll talk about my time as Attorney General, the promises I made and kept, and what kind of leadership I believe our state needs in the years ahead. If you want to know where I stand and where I plan to lead, this episode is for you. This podcast is authorized and paid for by Friends of Gettner Drummond 2026.
Welcome to another episode of Bold Ideas with Gettner Drummond. I'm Matt Parker, and I'm proud to be part of General Drummond's campaign for governor. Since taking office as Oklahoma's Attorney General in January 2023, Gettner Drummond has followed through on big promises, shutting down illegal marijuana grow operations, pushing for transparency and openness in government, and fighting waste, fraud, and abuse at every level. His leadership is bold, principled, and grounded in service to the people of Oklahoma. He upholds the rule of law and serves the people of Oklahoma, not the political elite. General Drummond, today, let's just get right into the heart of the matter. Why do you want to be the next governor of Oklahoma?
Simply stated, Oklahoma deserves better. Oklahoma is a great state, and we can be greater. We have to have public servants that are devoted to doing the right thing. The reason I'm running for governor are really twofold. One, I have a story about my grandfather I want to share with you, but also I've got 6 children, 7 grandchildren that live in this state. They need a bright future. When I was 14 years old, my grandfather sat me down. He said, Gettner, you're the oldest of 65 in your generation, and I want you to make me 3 promises. I want you to serve our military. 5 generations of Drummonds in Oklahoma, none have served because we are ranchers. We don't get drafted. We have to produce beef. I want you to serve. And I did that. He said, I want you to come back. I want you to raise your family in Oklahoma with Oklahoma values. And when they are all grown, I want you to come back and serve the state. And I will tell you, Matt, that has been my life's objective. I mean, I enjoyed 8 aggressive years in the military as a fighter pilot, culminating in the Gulf War. Wendy and I have raised our children back here in Oklahoma, where we have been richly blessed, not just emotionally and spiritually, but also physically and economically. And now that those children are all grown, I have a passion to serve our state, to make it better, to let it be all that it can be. We've had 7 years of mediocre leadership that's been focused on ideas that are frankly just noise. And we need now bold leadership that will make hard decisions, will pivot the face of Oklahoma toward prosperity and success for generations to come.
That's incredible. So talk a little more about your children. One thing I've had the privilege of working for you now on 2 different campaigns. The 3rd campaign now that I'm working on with you. And I've always been impressed with the incredible relationship you have with your now adult children and your grandchildren. You've been giving me some good mentorship on how to instill some things with my 18-year-old son. So talk to me a little more about the relationship you have with your children and your grandchildren and how that drives you to do great things for Oklahoma.
So as any parent would affirm, I mean, we don't get to create these children out of play, right? They're their own. Right. God created
Also different too.
And they're all different. And each of my 4 children are remarkably different. I mean, my oldest, Kate, has always been passionate to serve her community. And she's an OB-GYN today in Tulsa, married to a remarkable man and 2 great children. I love Hallie and Gwen. They're awesome kids. But Kate's got a passion for service. Alexander wanted to follow in my path. I can remember when he came to me and said, Dad, I want to be a fighter pilot. And I thought, oh, goodness, you just don't wake up and become a fighter pilot. There's a path. And he got on that path and he served honorably and he's fought in Afghanistan. He's received hostile fire. He's delivered hostile fire. I'm so proud of him. And he and his wife, Mary, raised 3 remarkable grandchildren, Adeline, McKenna, and Luke, and I love them dearly. Madeline, my 3rd born, thought she wanted to be in hotel restaurant, but pivoted in college, and now she's a banker at Blue Sky Bank, remarkable professional, balancing, raising Lane with Justin, her husband, living in the country, commuting into the bank here in Tulsa, a great young professional. And then the last is Jack, who somehow in this world convinced Ashley to marry him. And they have the most beautiful, delightful little girl with Quincy living on the north side of the ranch. And he is managing a ranching operation or oil and gas operations. Each of these children I couldn't be prouder. They're well-adjusted and committed to Oklahoma and want to be right here, making a difference in our state.
And do you believe that there are things we can do in Oklahoma that will make life better for your children and grandchildren 10, 20, 50 years down the road?
Right. So I'm the beneficiary of 5 generations in Oklahoma. And I believe that each generation of Oklahomans have made the state better for the next generation. And we're at a point where Oklahoma can be all that it can be. It has to improve on these deliverables. It breaks my heart when I look that we are at the bottom of the United States in education, healthcare, mental health, and so many other areas. We're better. We are better. And we need bold leadership that is not looking about the next elected office or a popularity poll. If you've witnessed, how I've performed as Attorney General, I have not licked my finger and looked for the win.
Doesn't always make it easier for political consultants.
My political consultant screamed, but we make hard decisions, and those hard decisions make differences. And people in Oklahoma may not always agree with what I do, but I know that I've been told this 1,000 times over. They know where I'm coming from. I'm coming from a spirit of honesty and integrity, and I want to do the right thing by our state. It may not be popular, but it's the right thing. I can remember as a young man, as a teenager, planting trees, saplings, in the home that I live with my wife, Wendy, today. And I was walking around the yard this morning before I came into the studio, and these trees are now, 18 inches in diameter. They're remarkable trees. And it makes me remember what my grandfather and great-grandfather and great-great-grandfather did for this state. They planted trees that they would never enjoy that shade. And as your Attorney General and as your future governor, I want to plant seeds that will prosper for the next generation.
On this podcast, we're going to get into a lot of issues and talk through that. But I also believe that leadership is key. A wise person once said that everything rises and falls on leadership. You've been in leadership in the military and in business, in the Attorney General's office, in nonprofits that you've led, many leadership positions throughout your career. What will make you a different leader than the current governor we have? And what should Oklahomans and the state legislature, what kind of leadership should they expect from a Governor Gettner Drummond?
So my leadership model is this. I want to have people around the table that are going to challenge me and push back and not always agree, and not say, "Oh, Emperor, your clothing looks so beautiful." In the Attorney General's office, in commerce, as a military fighter pilot, the men and women around the table held each other accountable. We provide no slack, no courtesy, no quarter. Every idea has to be challenged. And through that, it's much like sharpening a blade. You have to have that flint to make the blade sharper. And that is my life. That is how I've lived. That's how I've led. That's how I will lead as governor. I want the very best in commerce and in healthcare and in education at the table so that they challenge ideas and that we hold each other accountable.
That's great. So what would be your top priority if elected governor?
I think that we owe our children in this state a vibrant education. We are providing resources, but we need to provide leadership and guidance. It breaks my heart that we are at the bottom of the United States in reading proficiency in the 3rd grade. We need to have teachers. We need to empower our teachers to meet these children where they are so they can read. We need to emphasize 1st, 2nd, and 3rd grade reading deliverables so that these children by 3rd grade are prepared to go into the 4th grade, not just socially advanced. And then they can get math proficiency. Then as they enter middle school, I want them to be, there are so many alternatives to young people in Oklahoma. Not everybody needs a higher education degree. We have a deficiency in the trades. We have new industry that we could be training our young people in. So we need to drive those alternatives so that we can be workforce ready when the young person graduates from high school.
What other priorities would you look at? We hit the ground running. You get elected in 2026, January of 2027. Education is up for 46%, almost 50% of the state budget. So obviously that's going to be a priority. But what other big issues do you want to tackle immediately?
We spent 7-8 years in trying to attract these monolithic companies into Oklahoma by throwing away tax dollars and tax incentives. we need to start right here in Oklahoma. We have tribal partners that, frankly, if you look at the Chickasaws, Choctaws, and Cherokees, if they were publicly traded, they'd be Fortune 500 companies. And yet we are alienated to them. Our governor pushes back on those tribes. We need to partner and embrace. This is the Panasonic of Oklahoma. We call them Chickasaws. Yeah. So we should partner with them. We need to drive deliverables in Oklahoma where mom and pop Oklahomans have an opportunity to thrive and excel as business leaders.
What about mental health? That's something that you've talked a lot about on the campaign trail. What can Oklahoma do to improve those outcomes? You say we rank near the bottom. What should be done to improve mental health outcomes?
Right. So each of Governor Stitt's budgets has reduced the budget of mental health, and you get what you pay for. Certainly we can have, zero taxes and zero ad valorem and zero everything. Well, we have no deliverables. We have nothing. We've abandoned core services. And what we've done in Oklahoma by disbanding the homeless coalition, by underfunding mental health, this is what we get. We have homelessness rampant. We have mental health that affects every single household in Oklahoma. We have to do better. That mental health department is burned down around our ankles. We are watching it burn today. We have to prioritize that. We need leadership. We need not just friends and family from church and in our community. We need the best that the state has in each of our agencies to make a difference.
When you talk about these issues that Oklahoma's facing, do you think we need to completely reinvent the wheel, just burn it down and start over? Or are there other states that we can look to for models of, boy, they did it well in Ohio there, we can bring that to Oklahoma? What have you?
Right. So we have a great platform in Oklahoma. I mean, our agencies, our people, they're remarkable. So we've got a great basis to go forward on. Now we need to find better alternatives in the refinement. So we can hear the radio frequency. We just need to tune it in. And that's going to require not being so egocentric that we don't look to other states for examples. For example, in Louisiana, in Indiana, in Ohio, they have some programs in reading proficiency that we need to adopt. If we look at North Carolina, what did it do that differentiated itself from Oklahoma from 40 years ago? We were the same. Population and GDP today, they're 6 times better than we are. Why? Leadership, vision, devotion, commitment. We can do that.
Talk a little bit more about leadership. Faith is obviously an important part of your life. How does your Christian faith fuel your work ethic and your character and your ability to lead other people?
Right. So my faith defines my life. And to say you're a Christian is one thing. To act as a Christian is another. And that requires loving all people in this state, whether they agree with me or not, whether they're Democratic or Republican, whether they're male or female, whether they're brown, black, or white. All Oklahomans matter. And that is the faith that I live every day.
That's great. Well, you have right now, there are 4 other opponents in the race. I'm sure there will be more as these things develop in political campaigns. What sets you apart? And is there anything that's happened in your life from a leadership perspective that might inform our listeners today about who you are and what you'll do when you're faced with difficult decisions?
Right. As I mentioned earlier, I'm not a career politician. The very first elected office I ran for and held is Attorney General. What I've done, I've been molded by my background, living and growing up on a cattle ranch, working hard days of labor. I'm unafraid to work. In the military, I was trained to think quickly and make bold decisions where you have to make a decision. At the speed of sound, you don't get to stop and have a consultation with somebody. You make decisions. Now, is every decision right? No, but you make the next decision that corrects it. So that has framed how I lead. And then in commerce, I've made bold decisions in law and banking and across the United States. And I bring those with me to this office of Attorney General and as I seek the office of Governor. That distinguishes me from my colleagues. They are, for the most part, career politicians. They've been in state government a decade, 12 years. They enjoy that government check. They enjoy the accolades and the strength and the power of office. I don't want the power. I don't want anything added to my obituary. I don't want anything added to my resume. I want to serve the people of Oklahoma with this short period of time that we call life.
So, General Drummond, 30 months ago, you were elected to office. On the campaign trail, you made some big promises. How do you grade yourself after 30 months on delivering on those promises to the people of Oklahoma?
40 years as an adult, I've been in the audience listening to politicians tell me whatever they needed to say to get elected. And then I've observed that rarely do they do what they say. I'm a 61-year-old Oklahoman. I love my state. I am not going to check my integrity at the door. When I ran on 4 promises. And after 30 months, I've delivered. And frankly, after I won the primary, I began formulating the plan so that on January of 2023, I did not wake up in a new world. I had a plan, and we implemented immediately. What was most impactful in our state is when we passed medical marijuana in 2018, we were not ready, and we were invaded. We have estimates of in excess of 100,000 illegal immigrants coming to Oklahoma, principally from mainland China and the Sinaloa cartel from Mexico. And they have invaded our nation, our state. They've come through a porous border. They brought with them crime, graft, greed, and fentanyl. And when I took office, we stood up an organized crime task force with the sole objective of collaborating with Oklahoma Bureau of Narcotics and other agencies and federal agencies to close down these marijuana grows. When I took office, we had 9,000 registered grows and over 3,000 unregistered grows. We have closed down 15 marijuana grow facilities a day for the last 2 years, and we're now down to below 3,000 marijuana grows. What that's done is this shut down the fentanyl trade, the distribution of black market marijuana, human trafficking, sex trafficking. We are changing the face. And I have to juxtapose between the Biden administration and the Trump administration. With Biden, we would arrest the kingpins at a grow facility and we would detain the workers. The Biden administration said, give them a card, tell them to show back up at a processing center and let them go. And so time and again, we would detain the same illegal immigrants at grows across central and every quadrant of Oklahoma. With the Trump administration, the borders closed, the flow of drugs and personnel has stopped. And now when we shut down a grow, ICE is embedded with us and they take possession of those illegal immigrants and deport them. We are winning the battle now under the Trump administration, and I see the end. I can see it, and we're going to conquer the illicit drug trade in Oklahoma. That was a big one. The other one is we have just done everything we can as a state to alienate our Native American partners. Over 400,000 Oklahomans are members of one of our 38 registered or nationally recognized tribes. They should be our partners. It is not they and us. It is we. And I've worked zealously every day of my office to build back the bridge between Native America and Oklahoma so that we can enjoy the rich economic opportunities and the cultural diversity of our Native American tribes, who are each unique. Just like France is different from Germany, the Cherokee is different from the Osage. And we're working to build that bridge. Third point I ran on was openness and transparency. When I took office, if you were an elected or appointed official and a journalist or a citizen asked for your records, you could ignore them. Didn't have to produce it. No transparency. Now, I will tell you, as a young man, that same grandfather who told me to go lead and serve said also, Gentner, don't do anything that you'd be embarrassed to tell your mother. Now, shamefully, I've not lived up to that 100%. I've tried. But as an elected official, everything I do and say is subject to the open records and open meeting of Oklahoma. And we finally got a bill that was passed. The governor vetoed. We overrode it. And I'm proud of our legislature for doing that. And now I can prosecute those in the state that hold back records. And then lastly, we had a culture of corruption, malfeasance, and greed in the state. If you look back on the appointed and elected officials that we've had in the state, if you're rich, powerful, and connected, you could break the law. Not under my watch. I'm prosecuting men and women that violate the integrity of our tax dollars. Every dollar counts. That dollar, that tax dollar, you and I paid in, and we need a return on that investment. We don't need to enrich a friend of the governor. We don't need to enrich somebody that's got connections at the highest level. We need to hold accountable. We need to stop transferring wealth from the taxpayer of Oklahoma to the connected person who has no core integrity.
We'll talk two more things about the Attorney General's office. You were very instrumental in working with the legislature on a piece of legislation during the Biden administration to crack down on illegal immigration. Yes. The Biden administration sued the state of Oklahoma. The Trump administration dropped that lawsuit. There's now new pending legislation. Talk a little bit about how the bill got written, your role in that, and you defending it now as it moves forward.
Right. We were seeing during the Biden administration just this endless flow of illegal immigrants working in the illegal industry. And it was frustrating. The federal government would do nothing. It abdicated the protection of our immigration laws in our state and the integrity of our state. And so working with legislative leaders, we passed House Bill 4156 that gave law enforcement the authority to detain. Now, it's unconstitutional in Oklahoma to target somebody because they may not look like you and you may think they're illegal. But those who are committing a crime and in the state illegally should be arrested, detained, and removed from our state. And that's exactly what House Bill 4156 accomplishes. I'm thankful that the Trump administration recognizes that the state of Oklahoma needs some mechanism to abate the endless flow of illegal immigrants. That has now been challenged again by illegal immigrants who are being protected. Their identification is being protected by a federal judge, which is somewhat just crazy that we have the federal government protecting the identity of illegal immigrants that are challenging our legal law. But we're going to see that through to the end and fight.
First 24 months in office with the Biden administration, with Joe Biden being in the White House, there were quite a few lawsuits in the state of Oklahoma that you led against the Biden administration. How many times did you sue?
We had to sue, and it's sad to say this, we had to sue the federal government 17 times during the Biden administration. Every one of them legitimate. It's where the federal government, philosophically, the Biden-Harris administration believed that it knew better and that the states didn't know anything. And so when you talk simple things like the good neighbor rule with our clean air, we in Oklahoma self-police. Our industries self-police. We do not pollute our air. Now, the Biden administration wanted to average us with Texas and make us be extraordinarily clean to the detriment of our oil and gas industry so that Texas could have better air quality. Well, that's just not right. Oklahoma takes care of itself. We have fought them. We've prevailed. Similarly, the Biden administration would come in and overreach in every single area that it could, taking away the rights of the state that are preserved for us under the 10th Amendment and trying to legislate and administer the laws from Washington, D.C. So we fight back, and we've been successful in every turn.
As Attorney General, you're the chief law enforcement officer of the state. How has your relationship been with law enforcement? And running for governor, what things do you believe we need to do as a state to strengthen and embolden law enforcement even more?
Right. So we what makes us different from other states is, we have federal agencies that with law enforcement in the state. We have state, county, city. What we also have that other states don't have is we have tribal law enforcement. And we've had a little disconnect there with the McGirt decision, but now we're working closely with our tribal partners to bring safety, public safety to the forefront. What has been most encouraging and enlightening as your Attorney General is the opportunity to work with law enforcement across the state. The men and women in uniform are devoted public servants who put themselves in harm's way. When there's danger, they run toward it while the rest of us run away. I can't speak highly enough of our law enforcement. And I will say that includes the wardens who are the game wardens of our state living in Osage County. I've got my deputy sheriffs that are close to me and my game warden who's close to me. And those men and women need to be elevated and then rewarded with better pay and better opportunity.
Thanks for listening. If you'd like more of this content, please hit subscribe on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, or Spotify. Visit drummondok.com to learn more, get links to past episodes, and get involved with our campaign.
This podcast is authorized and paid for by Friends of Gentner Drummond 2026.